And Clark, a whistle blows, that's a foul, no doubt about it. But the real question, will they call it unnecessary? All eyes turn to Kennedy Carter. This was the first time the WNBA got truly physical with Caitlin Clark, and it wasn't random. It came against a familiar enemy, her college rival Angel Reese. Their debut clash on the professional stage had the crowd glued, and Chicago wasted no time sending a message. They wanted bruises on the box score, a statement felt across the league. But here's the wrinkle, it didn't start that way. Caitlin Clark came out firing. From deep, she launches, splash 3 points pure, and it wasn't only her shot making. She was reading the floor like a chess master, dropping dimes in transition, a full court dish to Wallace for the bucket and the foul. Chicago's entire bench was stunned. First quarter belonged to her. Her fingerprints were everywhere. But the Sky weren't celebrating, they were seething. That mounting frustration started to tick louder when Caitlin casually fed teammates easy buckets, breaking down their defense with ease. Too much dribble penetration, the broadcast warned, and Clark punished them with a no-look dime to Katie Lou Samuelson for 2. For Indiana, it was just another night. For Chicago, it was something bigger. The Sky weren't just playing basketball, they were making a point. Yet Caitlin wasn't fazed. Driving through traffic, up and under finishes, beating the buzzer, everything she touched made Chicago's frustration worse. And nowhere was that boiling worse than Kennedy Carter. Chicago's point guard was lost on defense, over-dribbling on offense, coughing up turnovers. Clark smelled blood. Mitchell buries a jumper, and suddenly Chicago felt the game slipping. When the third quarter rolled around, Chicago snapped a new game plan, bodying Caitlin, doubling hard. They weren't even subtle about it. Hands everywhere, bumps on every drive. Caitlin shrugged them off with flair, even when her teammates blew easy finishes. But trouble was coming. Caitlin drove to the rim. Dana Evans locked in step, and bang, Evans decked her. Hard foul. Next trip down, even worse. Clark slices in, but Cardoso hammers her midair. Caitlin lands in pain, clutching her side, sent briefly to the bench. Chicago's physical solution to her brilliance was officially underway, and the refs weren't punishing it. Cardoso played reckless as ever after that, slamming bodies, hacking on defense, still getting away with it. Yet Indiana stayed in control. They led 51-47 heading toward the fourth. Back comes Caitlin, and the moment she returned, Carter gift-wrapped her the ball with a sloppy pass. Clark intercepted effortlessly. Carter, humiliated, chased her down and shoved her from behind, ripping the ball with no whistle. Clark looked around in disbelief, nothing. Play on. Chaos erupted under the rim after Boston missed multiple putbacks. But then Clark pounced. She outmuscled 2 Sky defenders fighting each other and tapped the ball back cleanly to Boston, who finally finished it. What a sequence. Carter was visibly unraveling, her body language loud. Caitlin flashed a sly grin, whispering a line that poked the bear. Carter snapped. Pull up mid-range at the buzzer good, and she turned right to Clark, glaring. But then came the shove. Clark barely crossed half court before Carter rammed into her off the ball, blatant foul, caught on the whistle. Replay showed it for what it was: intentional, unnecessary contact. Yet the refs? They reduced it to the lightest of off-ball fouls. Carter walked away clean, and Angel Reese celebrated the dirt like it was a championship play. Was this really the standard? Were teams using Caitlin Clark as a test case, gauging how much physical abuse the refs would allow? Even Clark herself asked after, "Did you get any type of understanding from the officials on how you guys are doing that at this point?" Her answer? Yeah, that's just not a basketball play. Still, Caitlin didn't sink to their level. She stayed sharp, feeding teammates, pushing tempo, though not all of them could keep up. A brilliant assist into the paint, fumbled finish. Her vision was ahead of the roster around her. But the Fever grounded out. The ball zipped side to side, Wheeler to Boston. Foul bucket. Chicago, meanwhile, abandoned finesse, leaning fully into body blows. They prayed brute force could make up for Clark's brilliance. It almost worked. Nalissa Smith nearly coughed the game away late, fouling to hand the Sky free throws, but Indiana escaped. Final whistle, Fever win. And even though the scoreboard read victory, the Sky had set fire to something bigger. They hadn't just lost, they unleashed a style of play the league couldn't ignore. Because while Caitlin poured in 6 threes, career high points, and 12 assists, Angel Reese, she vanished from the spotlight, happy to let her teammates do the dirty work. Caitlin shattered rookie records and crossed into all-time record territory, while Reese hid in the shadows. The Sky had copied Draymond Green's playbook to stop her. They turned what should have been basketball into a borderline brawl, and Caitlin Clark walked out with the big win, but also with a target on her back. The third quarter began with an entirely different energy. Chicago wasn't backing down. They opened by smothering Clark, doubling her at the arc, sending elbows and forearms with every bump. But Caitlin? She didn't blink. Even when Wallace badly botched an easy layup, Clark grabbed the rebound, reset, and drove harder. Dana Evans tried to wall her off, meeting her at the rim. Whistle. Evans knocked Clark down with authority. Foul. Yet Chicago doubled down. Next trip, Cardoso collided with Clark mid-drive, sending her sprawling to the floor in pain. The arena gasped as she limped to the bench. Meanwhile, Cardoso kept swinging wildly at bodies, whacking anyone near the paint, but the refs still let her skate. Indiana, though, refused to fold. They held on to a slim lead until Clark returned, and her comeback was immediate chaos. Carter coughed up another ugly turnover. Clark pounced on it, streaking down court. Carter, embarrassed, body-checked her brutally from behind, ripping the ball out. Again, no whistle. The officials swallowed yet another call, and Caitlin stood there shaking her head, looking for backup that never came. Still, she pushed forward. After a string of wild missed shots under the rim for Indiana, Clark clawed the ball back from Chicago's defenders with pure hustle and fed Boston, who finally finished. Kennedy Carter had snapped. The frustration was all over her face as words flew between her and Clark. Caitlin poked the bear, and Carter came right back, demanding her moment. Pull up mid-range just before the horn, bang! She turned to Caitlin with fire in her eyes. Moments later, Carter shoved Clark again. A whistle came down, but incredibly, the refs only marked it as a light foul. Angel Reese clapped and cheered like a superstar, celebrating a shove as if it were a game winner. The unspoken truth settled in. Teams were testing the refs' limits, and Clark was the league's measuring stick. Even as the physicality raged on, Caitlin kept her composure. She let her game talk, even when her teammates couldn't keep pace. Buckets, dimes, and tempo, that was her answer. By the end of the third, Indiana stretched a lead, but Chicago was still trying to drag the game into a brawl. Fourth quarter, Chicago erupted again, leaning into brute force. Angel Reese grew bolder, trying to carry her squad physically and emotionally, even when her layups rimmed out. But Caitlin Clark wasn't here for moral victories. She erased double-digit deficits, swung the momentum in seconds, and made it clear whose night it was. Step back three. Cash, her sixth triple of the game career high. Everyone carved deeper into Chicago's defense. And when they trapped her up top, she transformed into a maestro. No-look dimes, behind-the-back feeds, threading impossible passes to running teammates. Kelsey Mitchell ate it up, drilling threes off Clark's vision. But it wasn't flawless. At one point, Caitlin's risky highlight pass turned into a turnover, and Chicago tried to capitalize. That's when Dana Evans, Chicago's Black Air Force energy guard, returned to shut down the fun. No matter. Clark still finished with 29 points, 12 assists, and the kind of stat line that shattered records, becoming the rookie torchbearer and redefining historical benchmarks. Even Reese couldn't mask the gap. While Caitlin soared, Angel was battling misses, offensive fouls, and turnovers. Her brief mid-range jumper hardly shook the narrative. Every time she tried to muscle her way through Indiana's defense, Caitlin orchestrated the opposite end, making her look out of step. In crunch time, Chicago's attempts at brute play collapsed. Smith nearly gave the Fever's lead away with needless fouls, but Caitlin locked back in, threading passes through collapsing defenses and closing doors Chicago thought had cracked open. The dagger, with 30 seconds left, Clark whipped a laser across the defense, finding Smith wide open basket. Good, game over. Fever win, but the real story, the rivalry grew venomous. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark wasn't just a clash anymore, it was a full-on WNBA war. And the cracks in Chicago's moral victory facade were showing. But the rivalry had another chapter. Caitlin's next clash with Reese opened year 2, and the league made sure cameras caught every second. Tip-off, and immediately Caitlin attacked. She blew past Marina Mabrey for an easy layup. Replay later, contact already building. Kennedy Carter switched onto her. Deja vu from the last war. Carter fouled her instantly. Different night, same chaos. Caitlin responded by creating mismatches, finding Aaliyah Boston cutting through gaps. Angel, meanwhile, threw up bricks again, missed layups, and bobbled finishes, all while Caitlin orchestrated laser-quick plays. Every defender they rotated onto Caitlin Mabry, Carter, Williams, she smoked them all. Step backs, floaters, logo threes, effective destruction, but Chicago wasn't interested in losing with grace. Once the finesse couldn't catch Caitlin, they reverted to their bag of tricks: hacking, grabbing, bumping. Reese got frustrated, whistled twice in back-to-back plays for hammering CC. The Sky benched her, but the tone was set. And then came the moment. Caitlin fouled Reese in transition, but before walking away, she gave Reese a shove. Reese snapped right back, chest to chest with Clark, the arena in chaos. Replay gave Clark a controversial flagrant, but the truth was clear. That pot had been boiling already. Once play resumed, Clark used that burn. She ripped through Chicago's defense, lighting up the stat sheet, rebounding, dishing, scoring. Close to a triple-double, she played like someone possessed. She wasn't alone. Boston paired with her on impeccable chemistry pick and rolls, pick and pops, power finishes. The Fever's momentum was unstoppable. And while Reese bricked shots and picked up fouls, Caitlin Clark crossed into history. A dazzling pass here, a rebound there, she secured her third career triple-double to start her sophomore season. Meanwhile, veteran Diana Taurasi broke a league scoring record the same night, but even that headline paled in comparison to Caitlin's fireworks. Final score? A blowout. The Fever looked like contenders, the Sky looked like chaos, and Clark versus Reese had officially gone from rivalry to league-defining phenomenon.